Here's Bob Weir in conversation with Rick Rubin from Shangri-La.
Do you write songs all the time? What's your process like?
There's stuff going on in my head all the time. Right now I'm kind of writing all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
It comes out very, very slowly, slower than a slug in a trance. But I keep at it.
Yeah. In the past, you worked a lot with a lyricist, and I understand he passed away.
Yeah.
Is that, how do you fill that gap, or how do you imagine it working going forward?
Well, I've always, I was working with John Barlow, the lyricist, but I always wrote like half of the lyrics, or usually wrote half of the lyrics.
Yes.
And
would your half come first and he would finish them?
Generally speaking, yeah. Generally speaking, I would come up with whatever it was that married that lyric to that music.
Understood.
And
you would have already the framework melodically of the phrasing.
Yeah. Or, some vague notion of that.
Yes. How often would a song change from the initial spirit when writing it?
Sometimes not at all, and sometimes it get way different.
Yeah.
A song is. I'm gonna dive right in here. A song is a life form. It's an alien life form. It's organic. Actually, I had a dream a few weeks back. My old pal Jerry came to me in the dream and introduced to me a song. And the song came in, and it looked kind of like a great big, like room-sized, ethereal sheepdog.
Yes.
It was big and friendly, and came up and sniffed me, and I batted it a little bit, and it came back at me, and it was interactive, and then we started playing and singing the song, and then we were in it. We were in the song. Part of it. We were part of that functioning organism.
Yes.
And then the dream sort of trailed off into wherever dreams go. But that just confirmed my notion that I've held for the longest time, that a song is a life form, and it comes and visits us.
Yes.
And it comes through certain people for whatever its reasons are. And or whatever its attractions are, and
when it's time for it to come, it's going to come. Whether it comes through you or through someone else, it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming to this world, and it's coming to sniff around and visit and hang.
Yes.
And those characters in those songs, they come and they tell their stories, and and they just want to be heard.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. When you woke up, did you remember the song?
Not very well. It was a jazz ballad. We were doing a duet on it. Where you don't hear many of those.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, jazz ballad. Yeah.
Do songs often come to you in dreams?
A lot of them. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. The good ones.
Yeah. What a gift. Sometimes I'll have a song come in a dream, but it's hard for me to keep them. It's hard for them to hang around.
Right. Yeah. You got to get right on it.
Yeah.
And what I've found is I've sort of made a little deal with my muse.
Yes.
Where no matter what time of day, no matter what, I'm getting up. I'm gonna pick up my guitar. I'm gonna get enough of it down so that otherwise I'm afraid she'll stop visiting.
Yeah. And would the way you would get it down be to record something, or might it be to write something?
Generally, phone makes it real easy these days.
Yeah. So you'll sing it into the phone.
Yeah.
Or sing and play it into the phone. How would set lists work in the band?
Well, that's interesting. The way the Grateful Dead used to do it is, Jerry and I, it'd be his turn to start or my turn to start. And
you'd take turns back and forth?
Yeah, we'd take
always.
Turns. Yeah.
Wow.
And then, and we'd figure out the first couple of tunes that we were going to do, maybe first three. Mm-hmm. And then we'd generally come up with what we were going to wrap the set up with. Mm-hmm. It says right here on paper. And then while Jerry was singing, I had all the time on earth to figure out what I wanted to do next. And often as not, I'd try to coax that tune out of the one we were playing when it was time to wrap that one up. Yeah. And then he'd be doing the same thing when I was singing.
And would they always come, or did you have a list of things to draw from, or you just always have them in the floating around?
Toward the end, toward the end, it was handy to have a list because the repertoire, the repertoire got pretty expansive.
Yeah.
And we tried to stay up on all the tunes that we'd brought around. So the way we did things, we got around to a tune maybe once a week.
Yes. How would cover songs work their way into the set?
Sometimes they just came up, and a signature lick or something like that would, we're playing that? Okay, here goes nothing.
I noted that there are some covers that would work their way around often, for a long period of time. Are there any that just didn't work?
Oh, plenty of them. We'd try them once. I think we tried. Pigpen tried singing "This Is a Man's World."
Yeah.
I think we actually did that twice just to make sure that it was that bad.
Because in theory, that sounds like that could have been good.
Yeah.
We have no control over those.
Can't
things.
never tell.
You never tell. How different were the members of the band, would you say, from each other, like music-wise, taste-wise?
Well, we had Pigpen, who was very, very funky. He was all about blues and not much else. Mm-hmm. And then we had Phil, who was into classically. He was classically trained, and sort of moonlighted in the jazz world. Mickey was a Marshall drummer. He played Marshall music. He was a national champion rudimentary snare drummer. So he played one of those big field drums and while marching. Billy's, I finally figured out who Billy's major influence was, and I pointed it out to him, and he allowed, as I was spot on. There was a certain era of Ray Charles, that drummer.
Yeah.
And Billy captured that lilt. And I don't think he even knew he did it. I don't think he was thinking consciously doing or consciously attempting to do that. It just happened.
Yes.
And then Jerry was all over the place. He loved, but I think his deepest love was probably string band music, country music.
Mm-hmm. Acoustic based, like Appalachian, would you say, or not necessarily?
Well, I think Appalachian music, though he was a huge fan of George Jones, Hank Williams, Jerry Lee Lewis, for that matter.
Mm. And what would you say how would you describe your foundational taste?
A little bit of all of it. I grew up with the rock and roll radio station on most of the time, but if there wasn't any, there were two rock and roll stations, and if I didn't like what was on either of them, I'd go fishing. And Christ, back in the '60s, if you went to a classical station, they played modern classical music. They don't anymore. They all play Baroque music these days, pretty much. I guess that's what they figure their audiences want to hear, and so I don't much tune into those stations anymore. But and then there were the jazz stations or the country stations, and so I shopped around, and also it was the coolest stuff. My brother turned me on to it. Was on Sundays, and sometimes on a given evening, you get the black preachers, and they got cranked. They really got cranked up, and I found that's music to me.
Absolutely.
and they'd find a theme and they'd work it, and they'd have another theme and they'd work that, and they'd work them together, and so I fell in love with that stuff too.
Beautiful.
And then the folk boom happened, what Jerry used to call the big folk scare, and a guitar was portable, and you could use it to accompany yourself singing, and you could just tell story after story after story with your voice, with your hands, and I found my home.
How would you say your relationship to music has changed over the course of your life?
It's gotten deeper. I say that.
Yeah.
I say that pretty easily, though. Let me think about that. Because, I wasn't all that deep when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Or I don't think of myself as having been all that deep when I was a kid. But at the same time, when I was a kid, well, what mattered to me mattered a lot. And so I guess I was kind of deep. And so I can't say that the music's always been, I'll just say that the music's always been where I live.
Yes.
The rest of this world, I'm just visiting.
Yes. Completely understood. Do you remember the thing that made you want to start playing?
I think it might have been seeing Elvis on TV when I was 7 or 8 or 9, something like that. And look at that guy. He's into it. He's having fun, and he's doing well.
Yes.
And he's making real music, and I can relate to that. Mm-hmm. And I got to do that.
Yeah, imagine seeing that as a kid for the first time. It was so outside of anything else going on in culture. It must have just been like a real revelation.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was, I couldn't feature anything else. I was 7 years old, maybe 8. So there's a strong desire to be a cowboy at that age. Yeah. But I figured I could at least work the two together.
Yeah, you kind of did.
Right.
When the band started, I think of the early days of the band as primarily electric, which was sort of what was going on at the time. Is that not accurate?
Actually, the band that turned into the Grateful Dead was Mother McCree's Uptown Jug Champions, and we were a jug band. We were a damn good one.
Wow.
Pigpen made us authentic.
Yes.
Because he was nothing but authentic.
Yes.
He was just born a couple decades too late and in a white body, but the rest of it was authentic. And Jerry was an apt student of whatever musical vein he was diving into, and I applied myself, and so the three of us were the core of that jug band, and we had a sort of we had folks come and go in the rest of the band, and then that band turned into the Grateful Dead after about a year. But that first year we were playing, what we excelled at was the old jug band music. Yes. And I don't know if you play music on, but we could play.
We can, yes. Should I pull something up now? We could listen and talk.
Sure.
About it.
How about New Minglewood Blues?
Okay. Well, there's 100 Grateful Dead versions.
Right.
Let's see if there's Noah Lewis Jug Band.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Good.
I was raised in the lion's den. I was born in the desert, raised in the lion's den. That's my regular occupation, taking women from the other men. Play it, boys.
Magnificent.
That's glorious.
That's perfect.
It's interesting that Jug Man music. Those musicians were the guys. The riverboats had the minstrel musicians. They were the minstrel musicians.
Yes.
And they do that stuff on the deck of a boat for tips and stuff like that.
Yes.
And I guess it's basically busking. And then when they come to a town, they'd hop off the boat, and everything was portable. They just go hit a street corner and play in the dark town.
And there'd be like a washboard and a jug.
A washboard, a tin jug, because
Tin jug.
yeah, people think of the porcelain jugs, but those only make one note. A tin jug, sounds like a tuba.
I see.
And
I see. I think I just learned something hearing that I never made the connection before, but in old country music, kind of pa bass lines.
Right, yeah.
Maybe it came from the nature of the jug, because you could only take the rhythm of it had to be kind of pa.
Yeah, that's true.
Very interesting.
Not a lot of percussion on a tin jug.
And you don't have so many choices of notes, even
Right,
where you
yeah.
could get more than one note. It probably wasn't a wide range.
No, you had to, a narrow range.
Yeah. How would you change if you were playing a jug? How would you change notes? I see. Just the sound. The sound you made is what changed it.
I played the jug. I also played the wash tub.
Cool.
Yeah, and occasional guitar
Yeah.
in that outfit.
Amazing. And then how did that band morph into the Dead?
So after about 6 months of playing in that band, Jerry wanted to take a sabbatical that summer, and so he left. He had to find somebody to take his beginning and intermediate students. So he got me to do it, and so I had a job at the music store, Dana Morgan Music, and then when he came back, I kept a bunch of those students, and he just concentrated on his advanced students, and so we were both working there, and Pigpen would come in, and Pigpen would sweep the floors. We were all working at the music store by the end of the summer, and the son of the owner of the music store wanted to be in a rock and roll band. So we made a little deal with him. You can play the bass, and we'll go be a rock and roll band.
Yeah.
And that lasted for 4 or 5 months, and then the guy, he really wasn't going to be our
Wasn't
bass
cut
player.
out for it.
He wasn't cut out for it. And Jerry knew this guy Phil from I don't know where from a party I think they met at, and he figured the guy's a trumpet player, but the bass, if you're going to pick up an instrument, the one you're going to be quickest to pick up is going to be bass. And so we sort of conscripted him, and went to work.
Yeah, he's an unusually great bass player. I wonder if it's because he started as a trumpet player.
Well, he when he's playing, he's visualizing the he can read music, and he's visualizing the music that we're all playing, and in notes and staffs and stuff like that, and in color. Wow. When I'm playing, I also visualize the music, but it's more an ethereal kind of deal. I just see lines and and colors and stuff like that.
Pre acid, did you see music that way?
Yeah,
Always.
I wasn't aware of it,
Yes.
but I think maybe the first time I took acid, I realized, oh, okay, well, you're hallucinating, but you always do that. Yeah. Yeah, I just, oh yeah. Okay, well, that's what hallucination is. Yeah, but I've been doing that for since I can remember.
Yes. It just allowed you to recognize what was already happening.
Yeah.
When you think of the Dead, do you think of the music over the years in phases, or do you think of it as one thing?
Well, both.
How would you define the phases as you were experiencing it?
Well, there was pre-acid test, and then on Jerry's birthday in August 1st of 1965, we all took acid except Pigpen. He never did. And right about then we fell into the acid test, and things got way different real fast. And so there was that phase, and that phase lasted through our first record, which was, I guess, 67. Yeah. And so that was a couple of years there, 65 to 67. And we were, well, actually, that phase lasted a little longer. It lasted through the late 60s, where we were pretty committed to experimentation. That was probably our focus. Then after that, in the early 70s, and I guess it was right around the time that Crosby, Stills, and Nash moved into Northern California to Marin County. And we started, it just sort of rubbed off that those guys were song-oriented. They thought, they weren't about playing, they were about songs. And the overall sound of it, and how it fell together. And particularly Jerry and I became enamored of that approach.
So like Uncle John's band might have been around that time.
Yeah.
Speak to that.
Yeah. And we started thinking in terms of songs. And I'm not sure that everybody in the band, even to this day, thinks of the material in terms of songs. A song, all hail the song in capital, in gold capital letters. I'm not sure everybody is on that same page. Some of the guys are still, what's a song? A song is a set of chord changes and a melody that you play through. Yeah. And I started leaving that behind. A song plays me. Yes. Around that time.
It's really interesting, the idea that not everybody in the band might be on the same page could lead to very interesting results.
Well, yeah, that's it keeps things interesting.
Absolutely.
You get different perspectives.
Absolutely. I don't know even how to ask this question. Was the band democratic? Like, was it a democratic process?
It was.
So everybody had a say.
Pure and simple.
And was it majority rules, or would...
Yeah. There was...
Would there ever be a case where everybody liked something and one person really didn't like it, and you would decide not to do it because they didn't like it?
Every now and again, there was one guy, and I won't go into names, but
Yes.
one guy who insisted on veto privilege.
Yes.
And I think that's a privilege. I don't think that's a right.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we granted it to him.
Yes.
Not sure that was the best way to have gone about that.
Yes.
But aside from that, everything was democratic. The best idea usually won out.
Yes.
Jerry was real, I won't say forceful, he wasn't forceful at all, but he had a way of getting his ideas across so that people understood them, and I like to think that I was also pretty good at that. Yeah. Presenting a vision very quickly and succinctly, and in a way that was palatable for the guys to pick it up.
Yes. How did the audience taping start, where the audience would tape the shows?
Well, it started simply because the Japanese started miniaturizing quality recording units. I guess you were started with it, but then Sony and Panasonic and all those guys were making, and Nakamichi were making really high quality recording units, and people just started bringing them to the gigs and recording the gigs. And at first, they'd have their microphone trees, and they were causing a little bit of friction out in the audience because people didn't want to have to peer around those things.
I see. So it blocked people's views.
So we had to herd them together into one place. And at that point, our record company at the time was hammering us. You got to shut this down. These guys they're recording your music, and then they're not going to buy your records. And this came up. I remember one time we had a board meeting. Where we have to get together and decide all kinds of stuff. And one of the issues was the record company was insisting that we do something about this taping phenomenon, and we kicked it around and decided we're not cops, and we wouldn't feel good about that because we know they wouldn't feel the audience wouldn't feel good about being shut down like that. Yeah. So let's get them at least all in one place. And so that they don't obstruct the view of the folks who aren't recording, and just leave well enough alone. The record company was displeased about this, but it turned out real well because they made their tapes. They'd make one or two generations of duplicates and pass them around all hand to hand, direct eye contact and that kind of thing. And we're credited with inventing viral marketing.
Yes.
And we backed into it.
Yes. And the fact that if you think about it, it also most plays to the strength of the band. The fact that it's so different from night to night that a recording that's made once every 2 years in a recording studio is only going to be that one day in the recording studio, whereas if it's different every day, and if you're a fan, I want to hear all that.
Right, you can indulge all the sophistry you can summons to debate this dark star as opposed to this dark star, birdsong or whatever. Yeah,
it's fascinating. It's also fascinating how the reality of the moods of the people playing it could so impact how the song is interpreted, and the audience gets that experience too. Really does change. The character changes wildly. It feels like your contemporary bands slowly morphed into the ones that continued into more traditional, structured 3-minute songs, and their records sounded like what they made a record, and then they performed that record live, and whereas your band, for whatever reason, never really did that. It feels like it was always free and always open. It's just due to the personalities, you think?
Yeah, it was our approach. If we were to if we were to try to do stuff, out of rote, just the way it was on the record tonight, again for the 400th time, I'd be up in a bell tower with a sniper's rifle in no time at all.
Yeah.
I can't do that. I'm not cut out for that.
Yeah.
And some folks do. Some folks are more technicians. And that's where they get, they can bring a bunch of expert technique to a song, and the song will live just fine that way. But that's not how we did it.
Yeah, I guess that would be like the difference between classical and jazz. Like classical was more about playing the part as well as you could.
Right.
And jazz was about, well, we have this theme that we're starting with, and we're going to see where it goes, and so we're going to go somewhere else every night.
And we ours was the jazz MO.
Yeah, which is again, maybe when you started, people were doing that, but that seemed to be a lost art. Other than your band, there's not a lot of bands that continued doing that.
Yeah, I think you have to be pretty gifted in that particular approach to pull it off. Not everybody was. They'd have their moments, but the safe thing to do was to practice, and the only thing we practiced was our approach.
Yes.
Whereas other people practice the song.
Yes.
We can't do that.
Yes.
With our approach,
we'd like give it away. Yeah, it has to happen in the moment.
Yeah, it has to.
Yeah, amazing. It's an amazing story. It's so. The trip is so unlike anything else. It's interesting to talk about it because it's just such a unique. It's such a unique thing from the outside. I started as very much of a song person in my life, so it took me a long time to get into the band because it seemed more about playing than it seemed about songs until later, until I understood more.
Yeah, like I say, some of the guys in the band and some of the louder ones in the band were about the playing and not about the song.
Yes.
That was...
How did it work out that you had two drummers?
Long, complicated story I'm not sure anybody understands. Somebody went and heard, I wasn't there that evening, but somebody went and heard Mickey playing at the Straight Theater on Haight Street. I think that's how it happened. Billy, and they dragged Billy, and Billy met him, and they got to talking, and let's try kicking around with two drummers.
Were there any other bands that had two drummers at that time?
No. And I think, well, at that point also we were listening to a bunch of Indian classical music, North Indian classical music, and that's classical music, but it's there's a lot of improv that goes on in it.
Yes.
And
the rhythms are really complicated.
Yeah, and the rhythms are complicated, and so the rhythms were so complicated that it sort of expanded our awareness of what you can do with a rhythm, how you can adjust this part, adjust that part, and then put an underlay under this part. And it just seemed to us that there was room for another drummer to go into some of those places. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I was ever really altogether sold on the two drummers business, because it started to take it more in the direction of playing and less in the direction of songs.
Yes.
For me.
Yes. It definitely complicates things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember there's the Grateful Dead movie.
Right. Yeah.
And there's only one drummer in that.
Yeah.
And that seemed really good.
That was we were hot.
That was a good phase.
Yeah.
Was it an interesting experience when like the Touch of Grey thing happened and all of a sudden you have music on the radio and on MTV and...
Yeah, that, the predictable thing happened too. It took one of us out. It took Brent out. Too much too soon. It's invariably doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Now, we so gradually and so slowly became famous that we were able to,
remain yourselves.
Yeah, remain ourselves. But the too much too soon phenomenon hit Brent because he hadn't been through that whole developmental phase, and it took him out.
Wow. You'd been in a band 20 years at that point, more?
30.
It's really must have been a wild,
yeah,
just so unusual, and I can't even say good or bad, just like what a new dimension. Right. It's like what a new direction, unplanned seemed like.
Yeah,
but songs were good.
Well, the songs were good, and also we'd had them on stage for a while, so they'd matured, they'd grown faces.
I see, and they matured before you recorded them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
we've been playing some of those songs for like 5 or 6 years. It was getting long about time to make a record.
Yeah. I think the thing that first pulled me, the thing that first made me understand the band more, interestingly, was more that second folk phase. And I think it was The Reckoning. When I heard that, it's like, oh, I see my way in, and through that, it allowed me to expand through the whole world of the music.
Well, interestingly, on the subject of the song as opposed to the playing, in Deadco now, the drummers are getting are going to get teleprompters, so that right under their noses are going to be the lyrics of all the songs. Because your average 17-year-old in our audience probably knows more lyrics to more of our songs than
Yes.
I think that's going to change our focus. Could change it dramatically.
Yes. Is John Mayer always in that band, or sometimes?
Well, when that band's playing, he's in it.
That's interesting. How did that work out? He's a great guitar player. It's
Yeah.
an interesting combination.
He went through his Dead phase about, I guess he hit that about 5 years ago, but he's John Mayer, so he can do something about that.
Yes.
And
I remember talking to him about it. We both kind of got into our Dead phase at a similar time, and we were sharing notes. So
a mutual friend of ours, Don was,
yeah,
we got together in Don's office,
great.
and John was downstairs working in the studio there.
Yeah.
And I was visiting Don, and he said, "Listen, I'm going to go down and get John Mayer." And he was real interested in what I was up to at that point. And he had a TV show, the Late Show, I think it was, a late night TV show that he was guest hosting, and he invited me to come and play on that. And so I figured that was. Keltner was on drums, so I figured, okay, I'm not gonna miss that opportunity. We, we got there for the sound check and plugged in, and they gave us 2 song slots, and we plugged in and we started playing. And a couple hours later, they said, "Okay, you guys are done with sound check. We're unplugging you now." Because we started playing and we didn't stop.
Yes.
And so I figured, okay, well, let's do something about this.
Yes.
And he was thinking the same thing.
That's great.
Yeah.
So cool. What a cool combination. And so great that the band it found a way to carry on.
Yeah. Well, the music,
Yes.
there's life there. There's,
Yes.
there's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you think there's a reason and I can't think of another example of a band who have had so much impact, so much success, so much importance, so much love, yet never really connected as well on the record side as on the live side? Do you think there's a reason for that?
I've pondered this.
And was it ever a frustration, or was it not an issue?
Well, I like recording but the recordings that we're kind of famous for are live recordings.
Yes.
And those are, like the difference between a painting and a photograph.
Yes.
The photograph captures the moment, and if it's really a spectacular moment, then you got something you can hang on your wall. Mm-hmm. A painting is something you go into layer by layer and tell the story. And I've always enjoyed studio recording, but some of the other guys didn't. They get frustrated. Why am I going over this again, trying to get it perfect?
Mm-hmm. To me, it almost feels like a missed opportunity, because I think there could have been really great records, but maybe in the same way that the other bands got more strict in their performances to imitate the recordings, maybe your band's records could have been more like you were live, more like jazz albums.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I really want to get in the studio with Deadco, and go that direction.
It feels like that plays to the strength of what you do.
Yeah. And just get relaxed and in the studio and get into a studio groove and then just crank some stuff out.
Yeah, I bet it's going to be good.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, pretty much virtually any night that we play, we're gonna have some moments that we've never had before.
Yes.
And I've got a stack of those moments that I'm about to wade into, and see if I can make some songs out of them.
Great.
And it could come to pass that we end up making our first record at our sound checks on a summer tour.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, we've got all the facility there.
Yeah. What's this summer's tour looking like? Is it a U.S. tour?
Yeah.
Great.
We're starting to talk about going to Europe.
Has Dead Co played Europe yet?
No, not yet.
That's going to be good.
Yeah.
How many times did the Dead go to Europe?
For tours, only like 3 or 4, maybe 5.
Yeah, which in the length of time that you were doing what you were doing, that's barely scratching the surface.
It was such an enormous undertaking, and there was also the drug issue.
Yes.
The guys, some of the guys didn't want to go without bringing Mama.
Yeah.
And that was that presented its challenges.
Were there other bands in the scene at the time that you liked as the band was happening in the early days?
Oh, sure, yeah.
What was the music that spoke
Huge
to you
into we were big. I was big into the band.
Yeah.
The guys who built this place.
Yes.
Then we'd go through phases. I mean, we had our Saturday Night Fever phase.
Yeah.
Marley was always a big popular, but reggae in general. And we had our country phase kind of early on. Then I'd discover a composer, for instance, that would influence my writing. Bartok got into my head for a little while.
How many solo albums have you made?
It depends. First off, if you consider Bobby and the Midnights a solo album.
I never even thought about that. Yeah.
But if that's the case, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 or 10.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I can't wait for this next one. The little trio, Wolf Bros, is it's a lot of fun.
Tell me about it.
Well, it's just me and my drummer from Rat Dog, Jay Lane, and Don Was. Mm-hmm. One of the things I wanted to talk about is you were talking about writing, and I'm pretty much writing all the time. I've got this. I can maybe play a little bit of it.
Yeah.
I can't. It's a ballad. So that's a tune I'm working on for an opera I'm writing.
Beautiful. What struck me when you played that is it's not uncommon when someone is playing a song on the piano to play the rhythm part with their left hand and the top line or the melody with their right hand, but rarely would a guitar player who sings play what you just played because you played both the rhythm guitar part and you played it more like a piano,
Right,
where you're playing the melody along with most songwriters I know who would play that song would just be playing the chords and would be even humming the melody if they didn't have the words yet.
Right, yeah, I was thinking of humming the melody.
But it's very interesting that you chose to do it that way, because it first of all, it's really satisfying to listen to, and I just don't hear people play that way.
Right.
Beautiful.
Working with some folks in Nashville on this, and kind of cranked up about this. It's going to be a big project. I've been recording some of the music in Nashville, and got a producer by the name of Dave Cobb, who's really good.
Good guy.
Yeah,
I like him a lot.
A wonderful guy too.
Yes.
And we're working on this, and he's of course very interested in me getting this, getting lyrics to all the music that we've written, and I was we had some wonderful sessions there. He assembled a little crew in the studio that we just popped out a bunch of great tunes. I had no notion I was going to be writing an opera until recently.
Yeah, amazing how it works.
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah. And so much fun. Doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. The discovery process remains like this epiphany moment where you get that sense of almost like can't believe it's happening.
Right, yeah,
Doesn't get old.
I know, you know it when it's there too.
Yeah, and it's such a great feeling. It's such a, I don't know, I feel it in my whole body when it happens. It's exciting.
The spine becomes electric.
Absolutely.
You become weightless.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Same can happen with a performance, like even
a
song you played 100 times one night, it just something happens.
There it is. Oh, that's what I meant.
I was meaning in the writing process, but it's the same.
Yeah,
it's the same thing when those
mm-hmm.
when the ordinary elevates to the extraordinary. It's unbelievable and so beautiful.
The muse just pats you on the head and says, "Okay, now's your time. Now's your little moment here.
So great.
I'm going to show you a little something."
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, thank you for talking.
Well, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for playing.
All right.